The gray darkness gave way to a bright and wonderful blue, like Linus had never seen before. The rain stopped as they passed out of the storm and into the sun. He closed his eyes briefly, feeling the warmth through the glass against his face. He couldn't remember the last time he'd felt sunlight. He opened his eyes again, and that's when he saw it, in the distance. There was green, bright and beautiful greens of waving grass, and what appeared to be flowers in pinks and purples and golds. They disappeared into white sand, and beyond the white was Cerulean. Is it almost the end of school and do you need a hug? Then I have the perfect book for you. Hi, I'm Miss Cody. I'm back again for another book chat. The book I'm going to tell you about today is called The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This story is basically a hug in book form. So if you need some comfort, I would pick this right up. This story is about Linus Baker, who is 40 years old. He's kind of overweight. He works in a thankless job as a caseworker for magical children who are in orphanages. His job is to go to different orphanages for magical children and audit them to make sure they're following all the rules, and then shut them down and disperse the children if they're not. He doesn't generally think a lot about what happens to the children after he shuts down the orphanages. He doesn't generally think a lot about most things. He has a very small life. He lives in a tiny house that he owns by himself next to his neighbor who's super annoying, with his cat Calliope, who may or may not be evil, and he has an awful, awful boss. One day, and kind of unexpectedly, Linus is called into a meeting with extremely upper management, and they tell him that they have a very special assignment for him and that he's the perfect man for the job. And so he finds himself on a train heading out to audit an orphanage, and he doesn't know a lot about it. But when he shows up, he finds out that this might be the toughest assignment that he's ever had to do. The house that he's auditing is on Marcius Island, which is extremely secluded and is home to 6 children. So we have a gnome who may or may not be murderous. We have a forest sprite. We have a gelatinous green blob who dreams of becoming a bellhop. There's a were-Pomeranian, a boy who turns into a Pomeranian when he gets scared. We have a wyvern who loves to collect buttons. And last but not least, the Antichrist, who also goes by Lucy. When Linus sees these children's files in his report, he is understandably quite scared of going to this orphanage. But when he gets there, he finds that all really is not as he expected. Although the Antichrist does live in this orphanage, as well as a bunch of other kind of scary magical creatures, it turns out that the situation at the orphanage is not as terrifying as Linus believed that it would be. These are just kids, in fact. They're doing the best that they can. Yes, they sometimes go into murderous rages and threaten to kill everyone and have crazy nightmares that shake the whole house. But at the end of the day, they're young and they're learning, and they still have the possibility of growing into something great. Leading the orphanage is the mysterious Arthur Parnassus, who has a backstory of his own and who is just endlessly passionate and hopeful about caring for these children and making sure that they have a solid future, even though they face discrimination from their neighboring communities, and even though it seems like this Department of Magical Creatures really wants Linus to go in and shut this place down. As Linus's month at the orphanage winds through, he starts to feel more and more at home there. He starts to develop real connections with the children and with Arthur Parnassus, maybe some romantic feelings there. And he starts to feel like maybe he has a home where he hasn't really had one before. He starts to kind of feel like maybe his life is in color now, where before it seemed more like just black and white. This is an incredibly warm, hopeful, inspiring story. When you read it, you will feel like you're just getting a hug from the world. And if you need some kind of reassurance that humanity can be okay, especially right now in these tough times, I highly recommend you pick up this book. It is just a delight. We have this available right now at the Champ Library. You can request it through our concierge service. And don't forget to keep getting your life entries in. We will be picking another winner tomorrow on Friday. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you next week for another book chat. Bye!